Well, we are hours away from the House vote on whether to officially launch an impeachment inquiry against President Biden, as his son Hunter defies a congressional subpoena in a pretty brazen move, skipping his deposition, and instead, in this shocking turn of events, he took to the mic in front of the Capitol to defend himself and his father. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, here with my co-host Emily Compagno. Also joining us, Fox News correspondent Molly Line, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, and Fox News contributor and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Mark Thiessen. Well, in his remarks, Hunter Biden blamed shameless MAGA Republicans for targeting him and his family. And he said his father was not, get this, financially, keyword, involved in his business dealings.
I'm here today to answer at a public hearing any legitimate questions Chairman Comer and the House Oversight Committee may have for me. I'm here today to make sure that the House Committee's illegitimate investigations of my family do not proceed on distortions, manipulated evidence, and lies. For 6 years, I've been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here. Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist. In the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. It's shameless. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. Republicans do not want an open process where Americans can see their tactics, expose their baseless inquiry, or hear what I have to say. What are they afraid of? I'm here. I'm ready.
Well, clearly not here, clearly not ready if he didn't show up for the deposition. Anyway, I digress. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Congressman Chaffetz, the words used were, I was not financially involved. Joe was not financially involved in my business dealings. I can surmise why he used that terminology. Let's scroll. 20 pieces of evidence from the House Oversight Committee of Joe Biden's involvement. We'll get to the finances in a moment, but take a look at this. Devin Archer saying Joe Biden is the brand, 20 Biden phone calls with business partners, a 2014 dinner with business partners, a 2015 business dinner, 20 pieces of evidence of involvement. Is this why the word financial was used?
Probably, Kayleigh. And look, the brand, the product that they were selling was Joe Biden. It was access to Joe Biden, influence on Joe Biden, and then access to the broader Obama Biden White House and that whole administrative state, because he had the name. He had Hunter Biden as his name. And remember how far this has morphed. It went from, I've never even had a discussion with, between the two, to suddenly now, well, he wasn't financially involved. But, bribery, the payoff is potentially, the allegation is potentially that it goes directly to the, inured to the benefit of the family members. All the direct family members, Haley Biden, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Frank Biden, the grandkids taking $100,000 to say that there wasn't a financial benefit to Joe Biden is absurd.
It is. So let's talk about that financial benefit to Joe Biden. Here is what the House Oversight Committee has said and presented. This is recent. Let's pull up the check. This is a $40,000 check to Joe Biden. You see the date there, September 3rd, 2017. You see in the bottom left corner, loan repayment. But I want to make clear how this check went about. Began with Northern International Capital. That's a Chinese company affiliated with the CEFC. Goes to Hudson West, a joint venture between Hunter Biden and CEFC. And then it goes to Owasco. Then it goes to Lionhall Group. Then it goes over to Sarah Biden, the sister-in-law of the president, and then the $40,000 check to Joe Biden. I wanted to lay that out because that's how complicated these 20 shell companies were. They call it a loan repayment, What say you, Jason Chaffetz?
Well, there are 175 or so suspicious activity reports that were highlighted by the Treasury Department as highly suspicious. We have IRS whistleblowers who went out and said that they would follow the trail, except that the Department of Justice shut down that type of inquiry. And wasn't it the president himself who said that none of his family members benefited from any relationship out of China? I think it was actually during the debate where he said that there was no money that was flowing, that they weren't making any money out of China. But it ends up that there were millions and millions of dollars. So this is why you need to explore and have this type of inquiry. And for Hunter Biden, in his arrogance, to say he's here, he wasn't. He showed up on the Senate side. He didn't show up on the House side, and there's probably a reason for that. And you know what? You don't get to negotiate the terms of a subpoena.
Right.
You wouldn't do that in a regular court, or you'd be in jail.
Right, right. You're exactly right about that. He also blamed a very specific entity. It's almost as if he was reading campaign talking points, Jason Chaffetz. We know Joe Biden loves to say MAGA Republicans, the blood red MAGA speech. Listen to Hunter Biden sounding a lot like the Biden campaign.
I'm also here today to correct how the MAGA right has portrayed me for their political purposes. For 6 years, MAGA Republicans have impugned my character, invaded my privacy, attacked my wife, my children, my family, and my friends. I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here.
So the Trump attack machine.
Yeah, I'm here. No, you were supposed to be over on the House side answering the questions of the committee from both Democrats and Republicans. That's the way our justice system and the legislative process works. That's the way you do things. That's why you have an independent branch of government asking those questions. And to suggest that this is all Trump, look, all these indictments were brought by the Biden Department of Justice. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump or any MAGA Republican who's out there. But to ask these questions, totally legitimate.
Jason Chaffetz, thank you for your expertise.
Thank you.
Emily Campagno. 2 U.S. Code Section 192, refusal of witness to testify or produce papers. Every person who has been summoned as a witness by the authority of either the House of Congress to give testimony or produce papers upon any matter must show up, I'm paraphrasing here, or else face a fine and possible imprisonment. There are consequences for defying Congress if you have a DOJ willing to enforce that criminal charge, similarly between parties, as we've seen it done with, let's say, Steve Bannon.
Exactly. Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, which they both faced 2 charges each, both failing to show up and failing to produce documents. So there's a real consequence here if the law is fairly applied. I have to say, you know, for Hunter's comments, I found them frankly laughable. No one cares that he was an addict. No one cares at all except for Hunter. The issue is his behavior. The issue is his failure, allegedly, to pay taxes, to his false testimony on a gun application, and the pretty obvious influence peddling of which his father is, yes, a part, because it would not exist without his father. So for him to stand on the slight offensive and try to parse out some type of narrative where his dad is sort of, you know, inculcated on the side here and protected and had nothing to do with it. He could have shut it down at any point, or Hunter could have simply said it has nothing to do with this from the beginning. It is quite obvious that the thing of value the entire time was indeed his father. And as the House will vote on this impeachment investigation, whether to move forward, just a reminder that it will give subpoena power to those 3 committees that are starting the investigation. And I personally subscribe to Speaker Johnson's point about it, which is this will investigate properly, methodically, slowly, deliberately, and not in a political manner. Hunter Biden has tried to paint himself the victim of politics, but the reality is that he is the victim of his own behavior. And we are finally seeing potential for consequences, both on the judicial level and potentially congressional. But it remains to be seen whether that part is fairly applied. As poor Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro know all too well, we'll see whether Hunter enjoys that same consequence.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Joe Biden. I mean, Leslie Marshall, Joe Biden said there's an absolute wall between my government duties and family's influence peddling. That was not true. He has said that his family didn't receive any money from China. That was not true. His family did. He claimed he never spoke to his son about his business dealings. That was not true. So what do you say to the American people?
I say to the American people, if we're going to impeach every president or if we're going to chastise every politician for lying, then everybody has to go down. Sadly, every president's lied. Every politician's lied. We all have lied. All humans lie. It's not a pretty thing. But I do want to quote Tom Emmer. He's a Republican from Minnesota. And there was a reason that Republicans not only took a year to get to this point of inquiry, but there was a lot of pushback from some Republicans who were in very hotly contested races with an election coming up. And he emphasized that we are not ready to charge the president, and if they uncover, and only if they uncover, evidence of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, then there will be steps to impeach. Here's the thing, and I said this with former President Trump. I don't believe in impeachment unless you're going to remove, there's actually a crime where a president can be removed. And I think I think we would all agree that's why Nixon resigned, okay? But Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden, they're not going to be, they weren't, and he won't be removed from office. So it's a waste of taxpayer time and money, in my opinion.
So Leslie makes an important point, Mark. This impeachment inquiry vote is set to pass, what we're told. Yeah. But coming up, you will have this play out very publicly. 60% told Harvard-Harris they think Joe Biden helped and participated in Hunter's business. So the American public has their alarms raised. But if you don't ultimately have the votes to impeach, you might be setting up Joe Biden to take an exoneration round in an 100%. Election year.
Yeah, I would have not made this an impeachment inquiry because Comer and his team were doing a great job with the investigation to begin with. And once you make it an impeachment inquiry, then if you don't get the evidence because if I was going to bribe Joe Biden, I wouldn't write a check from China, Bank of China to Joe Biden.
Oh, you'd have 20 shell companies.
I'd do it through shell companies. I'd pay his son. I'd pay his grandchildren's tuition. I'd do things for people around him and do it that way. So you're probably never going to find a smoking gun that is enough to convince a bipartisan majority to impeach him. So if you don't have the votes to impeach him, once you start an impeachment inquiry, then eventually the inquiry ends, and if you don't impeach him, you exonerate him. So it's a tactical mistake. But one thing on Hunter, he is like Pigpen. He has this dark cloud of disaster that follows him wherever he goes. The reason they have all this information is because he gave the laptop to a store and left it behind. And so here he shows up, and he's not going to be deposed because he doesn't want to fall into a GOP trap. And then he falls into one on his own and advances the story by going from we never discussed it to my son was never involved in my son's business. I was never financially involved. Just that word financially. He's fallen into a hole and dug Biden into another hole all by himself without any questioning from Republicans.
No doubt. Molly.
I think, Mark, you've kind of landed on something there where in this public statement, in this public statement.
The blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while, right?
Hunter seems to be trying to kind of set the terms, not just to get his story out in the court of public opinion, but to say, here I am, Mr. Chairman, taking him up on your offer. I'm here to testify in a public hearing today. That wasn't the offer. But he's saying, if there was a public hearing, that would be the right way to go, and I would be there, and you'd be getting information right now. In reality, we know that he's facing these charges in California and probably wouldn't have been able to give a whole lot of information, even in the closed door, the kind of deposition thing where Republicans say they're still fact-finding at this point in time. He also, as you mentioned, talked about his drug activities, and that's something a lot of people around America can identify and might offer a little forgiveness for and feel, for this family. So it'll be interesting to see how this all goes out as we get closer to the election, back and forth.
Yeah, the drug activities, that's interesting. I defended Hunter Biden when people said he left coke in the White House. I talked about how improbable that was. This isn't about an addiction. This is about financial dealing. So we'll see where it goes next. Hunter Biden defying a subpoena.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.